Good afternoon, one and all. If it's nighttime by you, if it's daytime by you, a pleasant day to each one of you out there. I'm Christ, I am Disciple. You're watching my channel. Now, you guys may enjoy the content that I have. I got to put this out there. If you do, don't forget to share these videos. Don't forget to like these videos. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like the content. Also, in the description of the stream, because this is a stream, you can donate via PayPal. My link is in the description. This stream is brought to you by LIVE Products. Live now. We're live now. We're going to start off the right way. Praise be to the Most High God. The Most High God directs our life. The Most High God directs nature, keeps the world in order, in spite of the imperfections in this world. As you can see from the title of this stream, time is running out on Warner Brothers Discovery and Israel. Let's get into it. United said Rebel Moon director cuts are going to be monstrous. These runtimes blow my mind. And for those that have read the novelizations know this added runtime is not mere filler. We're in store for some epic shit. August 2nd on Netflix. If you look here, part 1 is 3 hours and 24 minutes long on Netflix. And part 2 is 2 hours and 53 minutes long. So it's like a total of about 6 hours, which is really awesome. Really, really awesome. So the trailer is tomorrow, and some people are losing their minds. I know I said, yeah, when I saw that. Yeah, baby. So Leonidas, he's all happy about that as well. You know, I am so happy today. I'm happy for several different reasons. One, Zack Snyder's trending on Twitter once again. I told you the director's cuts are coming out. There's a trailer coming out tomorrow. I'm happy overall. Things are looking up when it comes to Zack Snyder and his movies. You know what I mean? Zack Snyder's having a ball. DC Update says WB's assets like DC Studios might face huge changes. WBD CEO David Zaslav is exploring options for selling assets, splitting off the Warner Brothers movie studio and Max streaming service into a new company. This move could help tackle WB's $39 billion debt. And the Senate House says, yes, it's true, 100%. It's actually possible that Warner Bros. Will sell off pieces of its assets due to its financial difficulties. Warner Brothers is going down the tubes. Its stock is not rising. It keeps on falling. Nobody really wants to buy the products of Warner Brothers like that. Or big companies, at least. So Warner Bros. Has found itself in a situation which Netflix is not in. Netflix is not joining up with any streaming service. They said, we're fine. We're good. You know what I mean? And so it's very interesting because the company Warner Brothers is just sinking and sinking and sinking. Time is running out on Zaslav and Gunn, Abdi and DeLuca and the other executives at Warner Brothers. But the answer is so simple. Restore the Snyderverse. Put Zack Snyder's Justice League in IMAX globally. An equivalence of IMAX globally. This is all they need to do. As simple as it sounds. So this book of the history of Palestine from 1722, 226 years before the Rothschilds, uh, is here, and it shows Palestine and it shows all the regions and everything. Really dope. Okay, I got a lot of things to say, but I want to keep it here. So, everything DCU says Batman, the Brave and the Bold will be the next film to get greenlit and is looking to shoot in 2025. Things will usually pick up later in the year. Instead of immediately announcing that it has been canceled, they're buying time by making people forget. The same people in the company do not have full power, and those who have full power do not have wisdom. The only salvation for this company is restore the Snyderverse. This is Sirkang, KRCL. You ain't saying nothing wrong, brother. Movies and games related says it's going to be a great month for sci-fi fans. Rebel Moon and Alien Romulus is coming out, and that is true. Jason Hinkle, who was a Trump fan, sort of like, is showing the truth that Trump is embracing Netanyahu, Biden's embracing Netanyahu, Kamala Harris is embracing Netanyahu. Man who's a genocide, man guilty of genocide. You know what I'm saying? So Jason Hinkle gets it. Okay, BRICS is saying that just in, Pakistan forms committee to locate and ban all products and businesses supporting Israel, which is really dope. Bella Hadid, as you know, she's suing Adidas, and there's a tremendous boycott on Adidas, and Adidas stocks have already started to just plummet. Bella Hadid, she's willing to lose modeling jobs to continue her support for homeland Palestine. Radical Jesus says the murder of Eric Gardner and then Standing Rock is what started my journey to this point. What started your political evolution? Trying to really get to the Snyder part of this thing and WBD. Warner Brothers Discovery is considering a bifurcation into two standalone entities, one for linear assets and one for direct-to-customer assets. This means Warner Brothers will sell some of its assets and split the company into two separate entities. So they're really going to do that instead of releasing the Snyder Cut into IMAX and really widescreen cinemas. They're going to do that instead. So where you could have gotten millions, hundreds of millions of dollars from the Snyder Cut, because you're going to launch Lord of the Rings movie later on this year. Now, if that backfires, you're in deep shit. Nothing's working for you. And we know Warner Brothers needs to get some cash going in their direction, but I mean, the thing people told you in 2021 to do, you still won't do. You're so hard-headed and stubborn, you're going to go down in a bunch of flames. And it's not too far away from that point. You're going to go down in a bunch of flames because you refuse to release the Snyder Cut in cinemas and restore the Snyderverse. You're going to go down in a bunch of flames. A bunch of flames. That'll be your doing. David Curtis says, isn't it ironic? What is so ironic? Dr. Jill Stein, who's a Jewish lady, is the only major U.S. presidential candidate to speak out for Palestine. Jewish people have a long history of opposing Zionism, apartheid, and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. In fact, the vast majority of Zionists are Christian, and that's true. And there's the case. Donald Trump, supposedly a Christian. He's not, but Joe Biden, supposedly a Catholic. Kennedy, supposedly a Catholic. And these guys all support the Israeli lobby. They're all getting major donations from multi-million corporations, except for Jill Stein. Jill Stein is the only one who she's going by the so-called legal route, where she's not taking any donations from multi-billionaire corporations. She's getting money from you, the people. And she still needs to get some more funds to get over the bridge for her campaign. So if you guys can support her, go to Jill Stein, Dr. Jill Stein's Twitter, click on our link, and you'll be able to donate there if you want to donate into the cause. Those of you who are very empathetic towards Palestine and what's happening with the Palestinians, she is your only candidate. Well, there's another candidate, but not a major candidate, and doesn't have a party behind him. She is your only candidate that you can go to who supports Palestine, as you can clearly see here. She is your only candidate that supports Palestine, okay? She's also the only woman candidate. Joe Biden will be running. It will not be Kamala Harris. It will be Joe Biden, Donald Trump. And you'll notice the media is trying to keep her out of the light. But as time passes along and as momentum gets going for her. Now, let me explain to you guys what's happening. So Jill Stein, they were trying to reject her ballots that were given because there's a certain number of voters you had to get the ballots, pay a certain amount of money to get on the ballot ticket. And it seems as though she came up short by 39 in New York. And they were saying that, you know, she's right now fighting in court to make sure she gets the rest of the ballots in there on New York. And I think somewhere else she's fighting the DMC, trying to block her from receiving the money that they earned. They're supposed to match them a certain amount of money. I think it's $300 million to keep the Green Party on the ticket for a particular place. I don't know which it is. So by you guys infusing money and sending donations to her, she'll be able to get through those issues. And they'll be on all the tickets, 270 different ballots. She'll be on all of them. Not just she, but of course the representatives of the Green Party. The Green Party is really a great party. It's a think tank party. No, it's not associated with Russia. If it was associated with Russia and supposedly Putin was with them, then they would have had the money already. They don't have any money. You know, they're raising the money the way how it's supposed to be raised. So that's why I'm speaking to you guys about that. Now, if you guys are sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, which I think is going to be the downfall of Joe Biden and the whole entire Democratic Party, I think they're all going to go down because history is already favoring us. We're already on the right side of history. A lot of Jews, not to say that these Jews are connected in any way to Israel, but a lot of Jews are in opposition of the so-called Jewish state, which is committing genocide. And there's a lot I got to say about Israel. This is why the video is here. But I just wanted to focus first on Jill Stein. Let me explain to you guys what Jill Stein is. Now, doesn't mean that she can't get corrupted by the system once she gets in there, right? But what I'm saying, it doesn't mean that when she wins the election, she doesn't get assassinated. All of these things can happen, okay? So hopefully she's thinking down the road to all of those things and who will be her cabinet and how she will deal with the intelligence community and how she will inform and start to enforce her policies, bearing in mind she will go to Congress where some of the people in Congress, a lot of them, have been bought out by corporations. So you have to think about all of these factors. She'll have to be thinking about all of these factors going into being the presidential candidate. But I do believe she could pull this off. Now, here's the thing, though. And the reason she's going to pull this off is solely on the reason of Palestine. I believe that's going to be the major issue. I think that's going to be the ticket that's going to get her in office because nobody else, not Biden, not Kennedy, not Trump, they don't have that freedom to speak about Palestine like how Jill Stein can. And she's not just speaking about Palestine theoretically, she's been in rallies. She's been constantly, the Green Party has constantly been, for 20 something years, not only siding with Palestine, not only dealing with domestic issues such as immigration, and they've actively been actually involved in these things on the ground, dealing with policies such as gender identity, from gender identity to the economic status of the individual citizens, living, homelessness, all these kinds of factors, dealing with empowerment, dealing with reparations. She's the only one that deals with reparations. The people who have been under slavery, the Native American people need reparations. She is the only person pushing for those things. And these are real things. She's the only person who's pushing for individual states to have more voice in Congress and in the federal government, while also having the strength in their own governments, in their own statewide governments. So she's the only one pushing for that kind of balance. She's the only one in all of these politicians, except for Trump maybe, who is looking to have more amicable ties with Russia and with China, etc. She's the only one in the set. She's not trying to be adversarial to China or to Russia, but at the same time, she's not trying to get manipulated by them. It's very important to understand, as a woman, she's going to be able to negotiate things that these men are not able to do, I think. And I think that's another key. And I believe this is the best time for her to be to be around. This is the great opportunity right here. So we'll see how it goes and see how it pans out. But if you support in any way Free Palestine, this is where you can pump your votes into. She's not going to split the vote. She's literally going to take over the vote. She's going to swallow up all the people that are disenfranchised with Joe Biden. She's going to swallow them up. She's going to swallow up people who are disenfranchised with the political process. She's going to swallow those people up, because those people are going to look at it and say, oh, Trump and Biden, they're the two worst ever. It's like Trump and Hillary, the two worst ever. People are going to have a third option, and they're going to pump their votes into that third option. And I truly believe that this is a gift for her, because Palestine is a big issue. Racial segregation, racial inequity is always a big issue, and so this is along the lines of what she has been doing her whole life. She's been part of the, civil rights movement, and just about every single movement you can think of, Jill Stein's been involved in. So what I'm trying to say is she really is best suited on the left, but also on the right, in the sense that not only in terms of Trumpian people, but in terms of anti-corporate establishments, anti-big government, anti-police state, she dabbles in a little bit of everything. She dabbles a little bit of socialism, communism, democracy, a little bit of capitalism as well, but everything in balance. And I think that's what's cool about the Green Party. They're a party of ideas, yes, but they're also a party that sees that things intrinsically are not bad, but they need to have balance. And there needs to be checks and balances on Wall Street. There needs to be checks and balances on the intelligence agencies. There needs to be checks and balances on the federal government. There needs to be checks and balances on the states. So I think that the Green Party and her could be a really decent answer, at least a better answer than these other candidates. Robert Kennedy has great ideas when it comes to things like vaccination, when it comes to things like, talking about big business and what, but he's also aligned with big business now. He's been talking about not being aligned with big business, and then he goes and he has these multi-billionaires fund his campaign. So Jill Stein's the only one that doesn't have like that kind of support. So we'll have to see if she can get through all of the other obstacles that need to come through her way. November is still a ways off, so we'll see what happens. Comes out to the ballots and the polls, and if she's still there in the race, I think she's going to take it. I think she's the next president of the United States, and I've been calling it for a little bit. She has to make it through some hurdles though, and some court cases and stuff. So we'll see how that goes. But if she gets by those things, I think she's going to be the next president of the United States, and that's going to be a pivotal shift in the way how things will go in terms of the United Nations, in terms of the European Union, in terms of England, in terms of the Middle East, how Israel will be related with the Palestinians, and also in terms of how the relationship between the global South and the global North even would be facilitated, because she's not going to be one of those warmongers who just want to fill the military complex, industrial complex with money. You know what I'm saying? So we'll have to see how that all pans out in the end. But you know, ask Jill Stein. Okay, and it's interesting that it was a Muslim guy, it seems, Osam Nur, who's talking about her. There he is again. Okay. This is Greg Storker. He's kind of saying stuff that we already know.
Report on the World Court's historic ruling on Israel's occupation and apartheid of Palestinians in West Bank and Gaza is huge, and the fact that they just completely ignored it is tantamount to journalistic malpractice and completely an indicator that we don't have a free and independent press. Regardless, this is huge. It is a historic blow coming from one of our own institutions to Israel and the West, and now the occupation's narrative is kind of forever destroyed in very real ways. While we have to acknowledge that this will not affect the lived experience of Palestinians in the occupied territories in any significant way in the short term, it will in the long term. So if you want to do the deep dive on the ruling, how it works, the greater context in which it exists, join us today on Colonial Outcasts for an hour-long deep dive. Cheers, y'all. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the places.
He's pretty cool, dude. J-Lo has donated a lot of money to the Palestinians. Ben Affleck also supports the Palestinian cause, and a number of people in Hollywood actually, whether they're Jewish or not, support the Palestinian cause. Anybody with a conscience would support the Palestinian cause. Anyway, here's this, again, this huge ruling that
by
came
the World Court, which has stipulated that it must be terminated completely and as rapidly as possible. The court also found that illegal Israeli occupation violates the UN Charter, human rights, and international humanitarian law. The court further unequivocally declared that all Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territory are illegal and must be dismantled, and that all Israeli settlers must be evacuated. The court declared that Israeli illegal occupation not only violates but eviscerates the Palestinian people's right to self-determination in their own land, including the right to their own state. This ruling couldn't be more timely or sorely needed. The Palestinian people have endured unbearable suffering and injustice for decades. This ruling is a vindication of their steadfastness and perseverance. This right must no longer be denied or deferred. The court made clear that the Palestinian people are the only sovereign in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem, and that the international community is under an obligation not just to reaffirm the Palestinian people's right to self-determination, but to see to it that this right is implemented immediately. All states and the UN are now under obligation not to recognize the legality of Israel's presence in the occupied Palestinian territory.
He left out a couple things, but that's all right. So he left out reparations, that the people must be able to return to their land, that those who are aiding Israel in their genocide or in genocidal activities until Israel has aborted the illegal occupation and all the things that are in violation of the IGC, international law, these people need to stop enabling Israel in that regard. So this is huge. All right, this is ISIS. I want to talk to you guys.
تنظيم الدولة في سيناء يهاجم حركة حماس ويحرض عليها. أول ما يثير الانتباه في البيان المرئي الذي هاجم فيه التنظيم حماس هو لهجته الشديدة. في هذا البيان يعدم تنظيم الدولة أحد عناصره الذي يتهمه.
Okay, so let me explain to you guys. ISIS joined Israel in the war against Hamas from 6 years ago. ISIS, of course, being up in Syria as well. ISIS, for those of you who don't know, is a Mossad CIA formed group. They are also the same CIA Mossad group that is also known as Al Qaeda. It is morphed into ISIS. ISIS is, yes, an Israeli initiative, a American Israeli initiative. They are actually agents from Israel and from America who have taken on Arabic names, but they are really Americans and Israelis behind it. Also, you have to understand that the same Al Qaeda that they say destroyed the World Trade Centers is again related to Mossad and the CIA. CIA and Mossad carry out nefarious contracts. I think Mr. Wesley talked about this before, but they carry out nefarious contracts for independent private contractors. So, for example, the CIA works for Wall Street. Mossad works for the equivalent of European, the equivalent of Wall Street in Europe. Okay, so what a lot of people don't understand is this is why they say America and Israel work hand in hand. Mossad and the CIA work hand in hand. So anybody who becomes president of the United States, for example, they are all updated and informed through the CIA and the FBI and in the NSA and other intelligence agencies, which work very closely with other intelligence agencies such as the Mossad and other intelligence agencies of different parts of the world, which is the French or the English, etc. What a lot of people don't understand is that these intelligence agencies and Wall Street, which are the private companies of America, they are the major instruments which governments work for. Okay? And so it's very important for you to understand what the military-industrial complex is, which is linked very closely to Wall Street as well, because a lot of the military complex has been privatized. In fact, what we call the National Army of the United States of America, it is funded mostly by private companies, mostly by private businesses, works hand in hand with the intelligence agencies. And so there's a lot of people don't know. So when you guys hear about Blackwater, for example, which is a mercenary company that hires mercenaries and has them go out on contracts, you have to understand that Blackwater is linked to, because think about this. We have veterans in America, but a lot of these people go back out on private contracts. As was said in a podcast that I put on here, a lot of times when programs are defunded, government programs are defunded, those programs continue, but they continue in the private sector. Take, for instance, the program that actually looks at all the data that's collected from you, me, and any other citizen online. All the data that is collected online about us. Mr. Snowden exposed that system of surveillance, but that system is now privatized. So whereas Barack Obama supposedly disabled that system in the public sector, I believe the North American Regional Surveyor, NORAD, was in charge of that, and now it's been decommissioned. Well, privately, it's been taken over by the CIA and by CIA reps and by people in the private sector, such as the guy who actually founded PayPal, who's the guy that actually right now is mentoring the VP candidate for Mr. Trump. That gentleman is involved also in military contracts and is also associated with Blackwater. Well, that same gentleman, whose name I'm not going to call right now, even though we know him, is Peter Thiel. He's involved in a lot of. He's also involved in that same information thing that I'm telling you guys about, which has to do with all the information. You know, Facebook gathers a lot of your information, but now Google and other search engines, they gather all the information and they pass your information across to these bodies which compile all your information from your whole entire life, and much information that they can get from about you, because they want to build up a file sheet. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about other things, and this is not firsthand. This is not me telling you guys just imagine this shit out of my ass. No, they gather the information about you and me and everybody else to build up a profile so that they can do what is called pre-crime. That is to say, if you have tendencies towards something, they're going to say, "Oh, this person might, end up being a sniper shooter or whatever." So they want to be able to build up an archive on you on pre-crime. Of course, these intelligence agencies, the CIA, the agents of the CIA are gifted in telling untruths. They are good at lying and covering up shit. Anyway, Peter Simmons, NHS Love, says this is why they hate him. Not for sale. I cannot be bought. I do not have a price. I'm not for sale. That's Jeremy Corbyn. Shout out to Jeremy Corbyn. Hopefully the future Prime Minister of England. I hope he does get there. They tried to remove him the first time. It's now official, no longer up to debate. The International Court of Justice declares that Israel is engaging in racial segregation and apartheid in occupied Palestine. They also have concluded that Israel needs to form reparations, needs to allow the Palestinians to go back into their land, into the lands where they were. They also said that any country in the United Nations should not support Israel in any actions where they are violating international law, and if they continue to do so, they should not supposed to support them in the following ways. 1, in supplying ammunition to them. 2, in aiding them in any kind of way, shape, or form that has to do with military actions associated with occupation. 3, by not doing any trade with them. 4, by also removing diplomatic ties with them until they obey international law and conform to international law. So it's very important that the countries that are right now aiding Israel in any way, shape, or form, they abort all activities. It's almost like a sanction. The International Court of Justice is almost sanctioning Israel. So the BDS movement have been very successful over the last couple of months in boycotting, sanctioning, and also divesting from Blackwater and all these things that have been being used by Israel. As you know, Israel has been hiring mercenaries to do their job, which is why they were so gleeful to kill citizens. And the mercenaries have really been doing a good job at attacking civilians, people who are not attacking Israel. When it comes to Hamas, Hamas has been very successful at destroying a lot of Israeli tanks, a lot of Israeli soldiers. So in terms of the actual war with people who actually can fight a war, Israel hasn't been doing very well in Gaza. They also haven't been doing very well in the north against Hezbollah. They've just recently bombed the port that the Houthis in Yemen usually receive their stocks and stuff for trade and food and stuff. But the Houthis are obviously going to recover from that. They have already attacked another part of Israel with drones, and they will continue to bomb certain parts of Israel. The Houthis have been bombing Israel, by the way. There's been a mass exodus from Israel, actually. And here you see the mass exodus from Israel. There's several different reasons why. One is the Israeli dollar is now very tentative because a lot of business has been closed, not only through the BDS movement, but also through the brain drain of workers, because a lot of workers have been in the reserve and have been in the reserve for 8 months straight. So they're stretching themselves thin. They're trying to have some more recruits. They've been fighting the wars in Syria. They've been bombing Syria. They've been bombing Lebanon. They've been bombing Gaza. And now they're bombing Yemen. So they've been in 4 separate bombing campaigns, and their bombing campaigns have really been ineffective. They're becoming more and more ineffective. The most effective bombing campaigns have been in Gaza, but they have not really been the most effective. By the way, this is very important. And Yemen has said that Tel Aviv is no longer safe, and they are waging war with Israel as we speak. But I want to show you guys a couple things. One of them is this. Saudi Arabia spokesman for the Saudi Ministry of Defense, Turki al-Malaki, says Saudi Arabia has no relationship or participated in targeting Hodeidah, Yemen. Saudi Arabia wants to make it clear that they have nothing to do with that. They're trying to patch back relations with Yemen. And also very important, very, very important here is this one here. I'm going to find for you guys right now. This is very important here. I'm going to try and find it. One second. I will find it. I will find it. Oh, that's interesting. I swear to God, it's there somewhere. Well, anyway, it's where being interviewed, a spokesman for the cabinet for the president of the United States said that the United States has no involvement in the Israeli bombing of the Houthis in Yemen. So they wanted to make it abundantly clear they have nothing to do with that, both the Saudi Arabians and America, because they don't really want to increase any, war where they're dragged into a war. And that's very smart on both their parts. But that is not something that they did before. Mind you, America had never said this before, and now they're saying it. So they're disassociating themselves with the action that Israel has taken against Yemen. And they are very clear on that. So that's very important for people to know. All right. Now, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov this morning in the United Nations Security Council says Israel provokes Hezbollah with the aim of dragging the American army into a major conflict. It is Hezbollah that acts with great restraint. Israel, not Iran, is interested in escalation, while the Russian Federation is doing everything to avoid escalation. I cannot make this any more clearer. The Russian Federation will not remain an observer of an escalation and will take its responsibilities. Look at Syria as an example. The statements of the Iranian leadership, both the past and the present, reflect a responsible position. Iran is not interested in regional escalation. Israel is. Hezbollah is acting with extreme restraint, and Nasrallah's statements affirm this, but Israel wants to provoke them into a full-scale war. Now, the Houthis have been attacking Israel. They've been attacking ships. America clearly backed off and was like, hey, look. We have nothing to do with that drone that directly attacked Tel Aviv. Israel came back and bombed first a settlement in Yemen, and then the Yemenis are so used to that they know how to evacuate or whatever. And then they came back and they bombed a settlement in Israel. And Israel has now bombed their port, the Yemen port. And I will not be surprised if Yemen comes back and bombs someplace in Israel again. That's very important to them, because the Yemenis are not going to back down. I can guarantee you they're not going to back down. All right. Now, and then there's nothing Israel can do to them that Saudi Arabia didn't do, that America didn't do. They don't care. They will keep on attacking. So and they're still attacking in the Mediterranean Sea. In fact, Israel all the ships that are supposed to go to Israel, they're being attacked in the Mediterranean, and they're relentless with it. Like, they're taking down ships. They don't give a fuck. Like, the Yemenis don't give a fuck. This is the only way to put it. They are like the little chihuahuas, or the little chihuahuas, or the little dash hounds. They're coming at you. They're coming at you with everything, and they don't care. They're coming at you. You know what I'm saying? They've been through war. They've seen battles, so they don't care. They're not afraid. They're not going back down. Okay, and no threat by Israel, no threat by America, no bombing of them is going to stop them. It's just going to intensify them, and they're just going to get more. They'll just attack more. Okay, so that's what it is with the Houthis, and that's how they're going to be. And actually, they're actually riled up. They get riled up when you. They get riled up when you attack them. It's like, oh, fuck you. They're like the little chihuahua out there. They're the chihuahuas. It's really funny, but nonetheless, it's serious things. I mean, people are dying and stuff. It's not that. Let me explain. It's not that I support their political policies. I don't support the political policy of, say, for example, Hezbollah or Hamas or the Houthis. I'm not saying they're perfect people either. I'm not saying it's stellar people that are. I support their cause. The Houthis are standing with the Palestinians. Hezbollah is standing with the Palestinians. And I'm not even cool with what the Houthis did in Tel Aviv, because Tel Aviv, of all the places in Israel, Tel Aviv is probably the most left-wing place. It's probably the place where you'll get more empathy towards the Palestinian cause. So to me, it's a bit counterproductive to attack Tel Aviv, of all places, right? But having said all of that, I understand why they're doing what they're doing. I don't even like that they preempt that the Houthis kind of preemptively attack Tel Aviv, like I said before. For all the places you don't want to attack Tel Aviv, but it is what it is. I didn't say they preemptively, because they've been attacking nonstop. They've been attacking Israel with drones and all kinds of things, okay? Since Israel has attacked Palestine, these guys, Hezbollah and the Houthis, have been attacking wherever they could, however they could, Israel, okay? So that's just been what it is. Now, I do believe that Israel's going down right now. Its economy, it cannot sustain this. It cannot sustain all-out war for much longer. Their economy won't allow them to sustain this. There's been a mass exodus from Israel. 500,000 people have left Israel. Businesses are evacuating Israel. The BDS movement has called business to disassociate themselves with Israel based on the genocide. All hell is breaking out in Israel itself. In Israel, the politics of Israel, Lapin is still trying to fight to he's not very popular in Israel among the extremists and settlers in Israel. And there are extremists in Israel. And there are extremists in the government. So Lapin is probably the guy. Yair Lapin is the guy that would bring a little bit more structure to Israel, a little bit more order to Israel, a little bit more sanity. But same voices right now, just like in Warner Brothers, same voices are just not anywhere around in Israel. Lapin's kind of like the Abdi and DeLuca of Warner Brothers Pictures. Think of Israel as like a corporate company, a multi-business, multi-corporate company. And right now it's going down the tubes because it rejects the notion of peace amongst its neighbors. It just rejects the notion. It believes in more force, more brutality. Okay? And this is what's destroying it, because it's as one of the early scholars said, Israel is becoming a Judeo-Nazi state, a fascist state. It's going into fascism, just like how Germany went into fascism. Germany was a democratic state. Germany was, wasn't fascist, but Israel's going towards the road of fascism. America is moving towards the road of fascism. Europe, the right wing, the rise of the right wing, and it didn't have to be the rise of the right wing. It could have been the rise of the far left as well. That would be fascism. Anything that's very extreme, such that you can't question it, is cult-like in fascism. Because you should be able to debate. You should be able to argue something with somebody else. And then when they get to the ridiculous realms where we're no longer arguing the person stonewalling you, that's different. But you should be able to debate things. You should be able to stand up and give your position and then try to defend it. And if you can't do that and you have to turn towards brutality, like what's happening in the police over Europe, in Germany and in France, where these brutal in Scotland and in UK, where there's the brutal beat down of people, imprisoning them. Now there's no dialogue. Now there's no arguments. There's no debates. When you have to label people anti-Semitic to try and quiet them, when you have to threaten them with violence, it shows that you cannot argue your case. Right? That's what's happening. We have people trying to censor people online. We have all these crazy things with YouTube. My boy, our Lord Kojay was censored. Hadid, recently a model just because she's Palestinian. They're censoring her and trying to censor her. And remember, she has a history of her family being kicked out of their homes in Palestine. Now the ICJ, the ICJ is vindicating this. All these corporate companies trying to satisfy, certain powerful groups, they're going to realize that they're on the wrong side of history. And they're going to realize that they would have enabled, for example, Nazi Germany's extermination, not just of the Jews, but of other peoples, as you will find out soon enough, if you've done your history a little bit. Now, this issue is very important because let me explain to you guys how deep this goes, okay? Let me explain to you guys how deep this goes and how this has very little to do with nations. It has to do with private corporations and families, okay? The modern day banking system that you and I use, I'll start with that. The modern day banking system is patterned. It's patterned after and actually to some degree owned by the Rothschilds. Let me say that again. The Rothschilds. Now, there is another very powerful family of people known as the Rockefellers. So you have the Rothschilds and you have the Rockefellers. These are very powerful families. Your modern day banking system is as a result of the Rothschilds. So any bank you go into is somehow in some way owned, and it's how it's ordered and structured is after the banking system of the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds own pretty much all the banks in the world. Somehow go back to them. And the Rockefellers. Now, why this is important for you to understand is because think of what you use every day when it comes to the internet. The major search engine in the world today, the major search engine that's used in the world today, except by China and some other countries, maybe Russia, is Google. Google owns the most amount of data and metadata in the world today. So the question is, how did Google rise to power so rapidly? Okay, I'm going to show you another thing for you to open your eyes to realize that it's always been the private sector that's controlled things. And this is why it's called capitalism. And that the purpose of wars is not to win them. The purpose of wars is to launder money and profit off them. You understand? It's for private business to benefit. It's always been that way. Slavery was always about the economics of it. Why do you think Adolf Hitler went into Egypt? World domination means absolutely nothing if there is no profit by it. What is capitalism? It's about business and business getting optimal profit. Why are businesses treated as persons? Ask yourself these simple questions. The answer is businesses are treated as persons so that they can get the optimal benefits that an individual would get. These laws that are put in place, you have to ask who's behind these laws and why are these laws put into place for Wall Street. And what is Wall Street? Why is Wall Street so important to America? Because who owns the Federal Reserve? The Federal Reserve is not a public government, federal government property. It's a privately owned property. Ask yourself, why is it privately owned? Who owns it? So that's why Barack Obama, 2008, bailed out Wall Street. Did Wall Street need bailing out? Absolutely not. But Wall Street never makes a loss, just like how banks never make a loss. Because the Rothschilds never make losses. I don't know if you guys are understanding me. Okay, let's go to something else that's very interesting. The Balfour Declaration was a letter written by Lord Balfour to a Rothschild. The nation of Israel was granted to a Rothschild. One was known as the Palestinian Initiative, also known as Israel Today, was founded by a Rothschild. I want you to understand this, because if you don't understand the connection, you will not understand where the future is going. You will not understand what this one world order, this new world order that George Bush spoke about, that people even before George Bush were speaking about, but George Bush was the first senior, that is, to speak about it publicly as a president of the United States. It's what Theodore Roosevelt was warning us against. And it also explains why there is a push against Soviet Russia. Why the global capitalists do not want BRICS. And they are doing everything in their power to destroy BRICS before it can come to really fully fruition. Why the global south is, why are there so many wars in the Middle East? Why are most of our wars in the Middle East? And why is there a great there's a major, the world majorly ignores the wars that happen in Africa. There's several wars happening right now in Africa. Several genocides happening in Africa, in Sudan, Congo, Somalia. Why is it that attention is only paid to the Middle East? Why is the Middle East so important? Ask yourself these questions. So many Mossad and so many unrests are happening in Latin America. Right now in Argentina, there's great unrest, just like how there was in Venezuela. Ask yourself, why is that so? Why was there this great unrest in Panama, Nicaragua? Ask yourself why these things happened. It's not just because of corrupt governments, but it's also because of interference, disruption by the CIA and Mossad and other intelligence agencies around the world for the Western Empire. That is why Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon is so disturbing. That's why George Lucas's Star Wars, the entertainment, these directors have insight. They're not just randomly. They won't say much. George Lucas won't say much, but all you have to do is watch other films that George Lucas has done. Look at his filmography. Go through the filmography of Christopher Nolan. Go through the filmography of Zack Snyder. Go through the filmography of George Lucas. Go through the filmography of Ridley Scott. Go through the filmography. I want you guys to understand what I'm saying. Of some of these Hollywood directors, Martin Scorsese. Really pay attention to what they're saying. Okay? Even what's his name? Steven Spielberg. Even look at what Steven Spielberg does. Because whether Steven Spielberg, whether some of these Jewish people, as well as some of these filmmakers are Zionists or not, they're telling you something. They're saying something. It's not just, that's what I said. I said, Hollywood used to say things. They used to tell you stuff. They used to say stuff. And how you knew they used to say stuff is because the stuff that you saw in the sci-fi particularly is coming to a reality. We are living what these guys put in their sci-fi. They're saying something. They're not just they're not just doing movies. Okay? It's not just entertainment. And that's what you have to understand. A lot of times it's also a programming to get you conditioned to what could be, but it's also sometimes a heads up, not a programming. Not a programming. And George Lucas came out and said it was a social commentary on the Viet Cong and America's presence against the Viet Cong, and he was talking about that. George Lucas came out and actually said that. Okay? So if you find that The Acolyte seems to be a corruption of what George Lucas was doing from the beginning, but it's intentional. It's very intentional. And a lot of people in Hollywood know this. Think about Jeffrey Epstein, who they saw alive in the Virgin Islands, by the way. He's still alive. He's still alive. He's not dead. But that's another story. But Jeffrey Epstein, he's a sexy figure, but he's also, when I say sexy, it's a very spicy story of espionage and so on. He seems to be involved in a lot of things. He'd be like your modern Israeli James Bond, connected to the CIA and Mossad and Deepwater and just about everything you could think of. And just about every prominent person you could think of, including royalty, has been to see Jeffrey Epstein. Every CIA operative, everybody's been to see Jeffrey Epstein. Why is that? And all of a sudden, he has to disappear off the globe, but he still pops up on occasion on, what do they call it? Lolita Island. He's been seen on Lolita Island. So what's he doing around still? Why is Jeffrey still around on that island in the Virgin Islands? Ask yourself that question. He's still around. He's not dead. He's been seen around. He's been spotted. Huh? So you have to ask yourself a lot of questions. You know, because it's not just about governments. And it's cool for me to talk about electing Jill Stein, but she's going to have hell when she gets up into Washington, D.C., has to deal with the federal government. Because the federal government involves the military, the intelligence community, Wall Street. And part of the military is linked to the National Rifle Association. But what's so cool about this is if she can understand the relationship between the National Rifle Association and the civilians, some of who've been on military duty, she will be able to understand the Second Amendment in a way in which she doesn't see. Federal control is a tricky thing. You don't want to be too involved in what the individual states, because they're individual states. And you have to have a good ear for the representation on what the people in the individual states want. This is very important. You're a federal government that does general sweeping things. It's not to be used as a tool to police the individual states, which is what United States of America has been guilty of doing to other countries or other sovereign states, because they don't know how to manage their individual states that make up their federation, what we call the republic. It's a balance. It's a delicate balance. Because the individual states have their individual populations, their individual culture, their individual way how their people will express themselves. So you have to be careful about gun laws and federal gun laws. You have to be very careful what you're doing. You have to be very careful about how you address specific issues which relate to the specific states. And you also have to be careful, similarly, with how the CIA gathers a lot of information, all right? Now, their data collection, they've been doing it for years. Data collection on every single country in the world, blah, 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 blah. You can go up on their website, you'll see all the countries and all the data on them and all of that stuff, okay? So the CIA has been doing that for years. But here's the thing. It's not the data that's the danger. It's what you do with it. It's what you do with it. I want you to understand what I'm saying, because you and I, if you really want to, can get access to all that data that the CIA has. There are kids out here that can hack into CIA files, they can hack into the Pentagon, they can hack into all kinds of things. All right? WikiLeaks have been doing it. In fact, there's nothing really that the CIA keeps that private except for classified information. They also do their monthly reports. And if you want to, you can go online and you can go on their CIA.gov site and see all their monthly reports and all the stuff that they say. Okay? It's an institution like any other institution. I'm not saying that these intelligence agencies are in and of themselves bad things. It's what people do with them. It's what people do with them that can be good or bad. You understand? And do I need to tell you guys you can smash the like button? If you want to, you can smash it. If you don't want to, that's up to you. So it's not that in and of itself the CIA is bad. Okay? It's not in and of itself that the FBI is bad. But there are people who are doing bad things with them for private interest. Okay? The Federal Bureau of Investigation, obviously, is a data collecting, first and foremost, it's a data collecting agency. Supposed to be for the different states of the United States. So that it's supposed to sweep over it's a federal bureau, so it covers all the states. But the individual states have their own data collecting institutions. Each state has their own. You have what's called CSI, right? CSI, I think it's called, right? Which is their own. What's the word I'm looking for? They have their own investigative bureaus or what's the word I'm looking for? I can see it, but I can't say it for some reason. Anyway, the point I'm making is that the bigger thing, the thing that covers more ground, the thing that covers more, just like how you have the International Court of Justice. The International Court of Justice is going to give a bunch of rulings and suggestions because it covers so much ground. It covers so many. It covers so many It covers so many bodies. It has the individual countries or states or nations. Then it's dealing with the United Nations, which is an organization in and of itself that has to deal with. And then it's the International Criminal Court. Okay. And then it has the, United Nations, all the United Nations organizations within the United Nations. Then it deals with the United Nations itself or the General Assembly. So the larger something is the more generalized you have to be. You have to be more generalized in your speech. You see? That it's all encompassing. So the federal government needs to be all encompassing in whatever law it passes. But the individual states are supposed to be more specific because these laws deal with this specific place. Take, for instance, abortion. On the point of abortion, you have to be so careful how you word that. Some states will enforce their abortion laws or laws on abortion in a much more forthright way because they deal with a different sort of situation that has to do with abortion. So it's very important that the federal government is able to understand the gradation of different approaches, of different mindsets to abortion based on the different states that it presides over. If you go and you put one sweeping law that's too specific, it harms a lot of states, one way or the other. But if you have a law that takes into account the different natures of people in different states, now you won't have the complaints by the individual states on that issue. Because the states would have more leeway and power to take your federal law and apply it in a way that's specific to that particular state and to the people, the general democratic will of the people in that state. And that's the important thing. And that's why they talk about centrist or central views. But I don't think it's centrist or central. I think it's a federal law has to be one that can be applied by everyone, which means that law must be able to be applied to the different states, and they be able to apply that law how they see fit. So, for example, if you were to say all abortions are banned or illegal, that's too extreme a law. Especially if you don't qualify what abortion is, right? That's too extreme a law. People will say, well, that's a right-wing law. That's a law where, it's totalitarian. And what about this instance? And what about this instance? If you're dealing with an urban population, for example, versus a rural population. The rural population may not have a lot of abortions, maybe Christocentric and pro-life. So the rural population is cool with that absolute law, but the urban population is not cool with that absolute law because shit happens in urban populations. As the population density is much denser, and all kinds of shit go down in urban populations, all kinds of things, disease, crime, all kinds of things. As a result, it would be very unfair to the urban population that you put this very restrictive law, which could cause the deaths of mothers, especially if there's stillbirth or some kind of complication that you have to decide between saving the life of the child or saving the life of the mother. So, in that case, that absolute law does not apply for cities and places within states where there's a lot of urban populations. So you can't have a sweep. Then you can't have, oh, well, if the mother wants to, she can have an abortion if she wants. And you have no age limit. The baby could have been coming and the mother said, I ain't want the baby no more. And this baby, they kill the baby, right? That's the other extreme. Okay? Now you got the rural community up in arms. Man, this is immoral and blah, blah. The rural community's all mad. What the hell's going on with this country? I ain't voting for no more blah, 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 blah. Right? Because the policy is too extreme. It's too extreme. And this is the problem with the right and with the left. And some people say, well, you need to be more central. It's not that you need to be more central. It's that you need to be more all-encompassing because this is federal law. This is not state law. State law is different. Federal law is different to state law. Federal law has to be something that's all-encompassing, bearing in mind the individual states and their representation. You have to know who it is you're dealing with. So when you make your law, you have to think. And that's why we have representatives. That's why we have representative senates for Kentucky and Illinois and Chicago and LA and Portland, Washington State, etc. This is because it's supposed to be that these people represent their individual states on how their individual states feel about a certain law being put into place. And then actions are taken to formulate a law that encompasses all of these different views about whatever is to be put into law. Meaning, whatever you say, you shouldn't have to put all these contingencies in there. That's for the states to do. But a broad general law that is clear, that deals and handles with abortion, doesn't need to have all these clauses in it. It must be sweeping. Meaning, let me give you an example on abortion. With respect to abortion, it is, generally speaking, not the intent of a parent to want to abort their child. But in the situation that it comes forward and the parent has to abort the child for life-threatening matters, for matters beyond the control of natural what's the word I'm looking for? Consent by both parties to have a child. So, example, in the cases of rape, in the cases of whatever, the option must be allowed for there to be an abortion. But it is left in the hands of the individual states to decide what is prudent for that and what is not. The state and the courts. And that's it. Right? That's how you do it. So now the clauses where it's acceptable, when it's not acceptable, will be dealt with the courts. Let's say, for example, a child has been raped by their stepfather or whatever, and too young to bear a child or whatever. They will decide. The state and the courts will decide how that will. Individual states and the courts will decide how that case will be dealt with, if it goes to that far. You understand? So it's a general law saying this general law is in the case of if both consenting adults didn't consent to this, or if it's a life-threatening something, right? Then in those matters, there's an abortion. Prior any other matter or any other complication coming up, let the states decide the fate of that. You leave the clause open to interpretation for the states, so the states would use their prudence and judgment on that matter. Now, people will say, well, a woman's body is her own and she should be able to do what she wants with her body and blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. Nobody's disagreeing with you. But guess what? We leave that to the individual states to decide. How's that? So if your state feels that way about a woman or a body, then you put forward the laws you put forward the individual laws on that matter that matter to that. If your state doesn't feel that way, you have to know what state you're going into. Then it's not going to be put forward, and that solves that problem. Now everybody's happy. You see? Federal law is not supposed to impinge on the individual democratic rights of citizens of a state. When the federal law starts to interfere with the right of the citizens of any given state to express themselves how they think as a collective they should be expressing, it is interfering with their rights. And that's how you do it. That's why you'll find Republicans saying the state is meddling too much in my individual life. The state is trying to take my children from me. The state is this, that. You're going to keep on saying that. But the truth is, if you make good law that is open to being interpreted by a certain state or a certain group of people who believe a certain way about something, once it's not something that threatens the lives of others, once it's not something that denigrates the life of another person, because of course the golden rule is the gold standard, right? Do unto others as you like them do unto you. So if you don't like people doing you this, then don't do them that, right? So the golden rule is the standard. But having said that, you want to be able to put law on the tables that the majority of people, which is why it's called a democracy, agree with. So when the law is subject to some interpretation by the individual law bodies, you give the individual states autonomy and a certain degree of empowerment to decide how they want to conduct their affairs. That's a safer way to do it. And it brings balance. When you take federal law and you try to thump people over the head with the federal law because of your belief system and not looking at the array of belief systems, and if the federal law doesn't harm people or the individual laws of the given state don't harm other people, you're doing the golden rule. Remember, that's the golden rule is your basis. That's how you're going to get this law to apply to everybody. And there are multiple ways to go about doing something. And if this particular community feels offended by your blank law that you passed, they feel offended because that community believes, no, that's not the way how to go about doing it. You never gave them, you took away their opportunity to do it a different way. Everything is going to be done the same way. So the federal law takes away that autonomy in a given state and the will of the people in that given state, and that's disenfranchising. All right. Now, of course, racism is racism, right? So if you're racist, actively racist, and you're putting other people down, that's a big thing. So some things are non-negotiable. Like I said before, the golden rule. Okay. But other things can be approached different ways. You know. Let me see here. Hold on 1 second. I'm coming back. The problem with people who make federal laws is they only think about their side of the story. And you can't think like that. You have to think all encompassing. You have to think and cater to people who have different views to you on a given topic, who could be as effective as you are, given their environment in which they exist. So that's the problem. Owen Jones says Israel has offered no proof of its claims against UNRWA, and a detailed independent report has exposed those claims for what they are. Here is a communal organization parroting these false claims against a humanitarian agency for Palestinians. We talked about this already, imposing sanctions on people. So, like I said before, the ICJ is really gearing up to have other countries impose sanctions on Israel. So Israel has economic problems because Turkey and a number of other countries, including Norway and several other Spain and several other European nations, as well as South American and African nations, have all started to sanction Israel. They cut diplomatic ties. They don't do any business with Israel right now. And the reason that's happening is because Israel is doing this genocide. And so the BDS movement has been quite successful. In fact, we've now got the ICJ through South Africa's excuse me, South Africa's initiative and a number of countries' initiative. We've gotten the ICJ to sanction Israel pretty much. They pretty much are sanctioning Israel right now and encouraging countries to sanction Israel. And even in the United States of America right now, besides the judicial case against Israel by the, I believe, the Department of Justice that has found a case against Israel. Excuse me. Israel, why I say Israel's in a very precarious position, like Warner Brothers, is because, excuse me, it's because Israel They're running out of money, you know. And from what I just heard from Bad Faith, uh, actually, America hasn't been giving Israel money. It's actually been paying the American military complex contractors to ship arms to Israel. So all of this so-called billions of dollars that are going to Israel haven't gone to Israel. They've gone to American contractors or private companies which are sent shipping arms to Israel. So Israel's not collecting any money at all to buy arms. It's the same thing happening with Germany. So the businesses in Germany are making a lot of money. The corporations are making a lot of money, but the people of Germany are still suffering. They're not the ones making the money. So the military complex is doing exceptionally well. The data information sharing and surveillance companies worldwide are doing very well, but the individual citizens of these countries are doing very bad. So, for instance, the American economy is not doing very well because Joe Biden is paying the military complex to ship weapons to Israel. So, again, the rich are getting richer. The poor people's tax dollars are being used for this, and poor people and people, general citizens, middle class people, etc., they're suffering as a result of this. So here's all this suffering happening as a result of corrupt officials giving corporations on Wall Street tons and tons of money to ship weapons to Israel. This is what's going on. And so instead of the money being spread among the many, they're going into the hands of the few who are already wealthy. This is what the unions, the trade unions in the United States of America are fighting against. You have the trade unions in Germany, in Europe, they're fighting against because there is a law that you're not supposed to be sending weapons to a country which is committing war crimes and breaking international law. And yet there's this violation by Congress, who is empowering private contractors, military contractors, and also surveillance companies to invest in Israel's war, which is just very wrong. And the Israeli lobby is nothing compared to the military complex. The military complex receives, you guys know how much money every year. We're talking about trillions of dollars go to the military complex. Okay, trillions. So, it's one of those things where you have to ask yourself, why is it that killing people and destruction is the primary investment that the U.S. would be investing in? Why would you want to do something so evil? And so that's why I said Joe Biden has a blood on his hands, and all the people complicit in this, the Democratic Party, the Republicans, Donald Trump's the same thing. He's complicit in genocide, talking about they should finish the ground sooner. It's just disgusting. These people are disgusting, and they will go down in history as disgusting people. Joe Biden did a lot of good things for the economy, in the beginning, and then he just came and messed up everything with Palestine. So that's on him. You know what I mean? You showed your true colors, and we should just. But we saw it. We saw it with COVID. We saw him show his true colors with COVID as well. So it is what it is. Anyways, I gotta go. I spent enough time with you guys. Blessings be to each and every one of you guys. It doesn't matter if they single us out. It doesn't matter what they do. We need to stand up and we need to speak out. And it's good to see the real Jewish people speak out. Oh, I almost forgot. Breaking. American citizen attacked by Israeli settlers in the West Bank. The Israelis can attack American citizens and there's zero consequences. Okay? It's crazy. Crazy. Last one. China says the United States' days of bullying the world are coming to an end. Yeah, well, because they're not the major economic power anymore. Not the major economic power. You know.
Today, me and Esther took Youth Demand's message to the cenotaph, a memorial for World War II, to remind Labour that never again means never again for anyone. Then, on Wednesday, many gathered to peacefully protest at the state opening of Parliament, and police arrested nearly 50 people, literally for standing in a park holding Palestine flags, and others who were just sat in a cafe nearby. It's fucking insane. But this shows they're frightened of us, which means what we're doing is working. Because we know real resistance means disrupting. It means breaking the law. It means doing everything we can for the people of Palestine to end the genocide now.
And we are not stopping. Over August, we're going to be strategizing and figuring out our next actions. And you can join us between the 2nd and 4th of August at the Camp for Revolution. Come and join me and a bunch of other young people who are in this community who want to bring this system down. There's going to be sessions by guest speakers. There's going to be workshops. There's going to be time to relax together. It's going to be great. You can get your tickets on Eventbrite now. The link is in the bio. And in September, we're back on the front lines. We're back on the blockades. We're back with the paint canisters. We're back taking action again. Now, to keep doing actions at the rate we've been doing, we need funding, we need money. Unlike Labour, we don't have millionaire Zionist backers. We don't have fossil fuel cash to keep us going. We're powered by ordinary people. That's how we fund all the actions. And we need your support to keep doing these actions. We need your support to keep going. So the donate link will be linked after this post. Please donate anything you can. If it's £1, if it's £10, if it's £100, we need the money. Please donate. And you can join us, sign up for action at youthdemand.org. We'll see you back on the streets. We've got to keep going. We've got to keep doing this. Free Palestine.
Now, what's so powerful about that is the civics, you know, all the people online who also push this cause and, you know, allow for material to be shown and stuff. We know Elon Musk is collecting all this data on us, you know, and selling it to, you know, surveillance companies, CIA, etc. But what we have to do is still conduct our lives and live our lives, be true to ourselves. It doesn't matter what they feel. It doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't matter what strategies they try to come at us with. The human spirit is such that they will always resist and will always come back and fight. So it is what it is with humanity. And you just have to keep fighting. You have to keep fighting. So I just thought I would leave that with you guys. I don't think I have much more to say. This is a young man who is in...
Every day the settler attack stopped. Well, the attack stopped specifically on the water tank, as the settlers still attack in many other places. But here, there hasn't been an attack in weeks. And this is a small victory for us, since before we came here, they were attacked practically every single time they came to get water. So what we're doing here is working, but the problem is that we really don't have enough people. If you're based in Palestine, Israel, and you would like to join us, message me. And if you're abroad and you're willing to travel to the West Bank to do protected presence, message looking the occupation in the eye. The presence of human rights advocates in the area is essential to the survival of this place. Behind me, Palestinian water tankers are getting water for the village. Ever since we started accompanying them every day, the settler attacks stopped.
Now, Audrey, who is one of the peace activists, this gentleman here, he was brutally attacked by Israeli settlers today near Nablus. So, again, the very radical right-wing, immoral settlers, Israeli settlers, have continued to attack people who have been trying just to protect other people. You know, and these are all agriculturists. You see the tractors behind there. They have attracted him. They attacked him. Now, what I want to say, though, is, and what a lot of people need to understand is, Audrey is a Jewish person. So why are Jews attacking Jews, right? Or at least, I don't know if he's a practicing Jew. See, I shouldn't even say that. I don't know if he's a Jew, period. If he's not a Jew, you know, a Jew is by religion. So if you're practicing Judaism, you're a Jew. You're not a Jew because of genealogy. So that's another crazy thing. Yeah, anyway, Audrey is a guy who, is trying to protect the settlers, and they attacked him. He's a peace activist, and they attacked him. So we'll see how things go. Keep Audrey in your prayers and in your mind. I'm going to say peace out now. I have to go and do a couple of other things. Like I have to go get food, and I have to go. I may have to go get supplies as well. Maybe I'll get supplies. Maybe I won't. But I hope you guys have a blessed day. God be with you all. I am out. Christ I am disciple. Have a good one.